Hello and welcome to this episode of the Excalibur podcast, hosted by myself, Carl Brooks, and we've got Connor Creech back here.
Yep, back again.
Oh,
Blessed to be back.
100%, my brother, 100%. It's always good to have a conversation with you. Yesterday we had a freaking awesome time doing a little hike.
Yeah, right by the river, a little rock hopping, 100+ degree temperature. It was intense, but it was good.
Yeah, we were talking about quite a few interesting topics yesterday. I think one of the ones two of them were very interesting. One was our differentiation between comfort zones, because we were talking about the fact that when I came from South Africa, we don't have indoor cooling, indoor heating, all the rest of this stuff. So that was a eye opener for you. And my terms of comfort zone is very different to a lot of people over here. And then the second thing we were talking about was leadership and leadership qualities.
Yeah. We were delving pretty deep into leadership, and I want to talk to you about it a little bit. I was going to ask you exactly what is leadership to you?
That's an interesting conversation or interesting topic. I believe it makes up a whole host of different principles and qualities that you need to exhibit, but it is related back to dancing. I think there was a movie called Take the Lead with Antonio Banderas, and he takes two people from opposing parts of a gang synergy, and he puts them together, the one girl, one boy, and it's his job to lead her in this dance. And he says, you can allow her to and take her on a journey, and it's her job to, her will to be able to follow you, but it's also your job to take her there and to trust. And I believe that that's something that leadership is to me. It's allowing the people that are following you to trust you, to act with integrity, and to take them on the journey to exhibit what are the best qualities of them and turn them into leaders. You know, that's the whole purpose of a leader, is to make more leaders so that the world becomes a better place at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think earning leadership roles is very important too. We were talking a little bit, and I was trying to think back on leaders in my life, and the first one that came to mind was my old sponsor. In recovery, you have somebody who guides you through recovery, and some of the most important qualities are the fact that they have experienced strength and hope,
right?
And they have gone through what you're going through, and they have gotten through it. So they're not just talking the talk; they actually walk the walk.
Precisely.
Another great quality I looked up to was selfless service, which is something we always strive for. But a great leader isn't serving himself. He's helping other people.
Right.
So between having the experience, strength, and hope of going through the situations that the team will be going through, the group will be going through, they have that, but they also have the ability to go out of their way outside of themselves to help the other people with that.
Yes. And it's loyalty to themselves as well as the people that they are leading. And the way that I'm talking about loyalty is that when you say that you're going to do something for yourself, for example, you say that you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Are you actually doing that? Are you, like you said, walking the walk? There are particular things that people will follow people that lead from the front. And if you're not, then there's this incongruency that they can sense.
Yes.
And I see that a lot in the corporate world today. And that's one of the things that has happened in so many different companies when there's restructures and when there are layoffs, right? I don't understand why, when it is the leader's job to guide their people to a successful company, do you lay off all the people at the bottom? If it's that person's responsibility. In the samurai, they would commit seppuku, or ritual suicide if they weren't doing the particular things that they were meant to do, because they take responsibility for themselves. Whereas here, I see people just shift that responsibility. They will take the praise and they will shift the blame. But a leader is a complete opposite. He gives the praise to the other people, and he will take the blame and the responsibility of that entire outcome, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I know you're a very busy person. I thought I was busy working the 75 hours this week, but you almost doubled that, I'm sure. And you've got a few leadership positions yourself. I know with both your companies, both Excalibur and Amron, that you were a leader in that. What differentiates you from your leaders in those positions at your company in particular?
Interesting. I think it goes back to, you said walking the walk.
Yeah.
But also, I think I have a framework that I work towards. Coach Ruffer, in his book, The Redefining the 21st Century Man, he speaks about the warrior paragon as well as pragmatic leadership. And in there, he creates the perfect framework to actually utilize in your life as a guide to becoming a better leader. Obviously, I've read copious amounts of books like by leadership by John C. Maxwell and quite a few different avenues, and I strive to implement those different knowledge banks into everything that I do. I think the biggest thing that I would say differentiates me is that I see the qualities in people that they don't see themselves, and I try and draw those out through questioning and by putting them into positions where they can thrive in that. Because everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Our job as leaders is to be able to optimize the strengths and improve the weaknesses.
Yeah, and you're also very good at that. We actually had a long, deep conversation about myself during our hike yesterday. And of course, as most of our conversations, they always grow and evolve. And you got me to open up about some of my, what I felt was weaknesses, and reframe everything through like NLP and the practice that you have with helping other people kind of open up their mind and shift how they see things.
Yes.
Because I was having an issue where I was always thinking like, I could do better, I could be better. And that's been the story of my life. Like ever since I was a little kid, there's always been that voice in my head, like now is not enough, I need more.
Right.
And that fed, of course, into my addiction. It could feed into the wrong things. It could also feed into the great things. Like I said, I worked crazy hours this week. I worked 5 projects by the end of the weekend, and I loved it. Like I felt super fulfilled. It was awesome. Of course, it put a little bit of strain on my marriage,
right,
because I was so far apart from her and working so hard. But at the end of the day, I was trying to put myself first so that I could also put us first.
Precisely.
So
and
I could
and
take care.
how happy have you been, and have you injected that happiness into the relationship?
Yeah. It's a new phenomenon, trying to balance it, because that's what marriage is. It's growth and growing together, but also growing individually.
Yes.
And it's been such a big change with starting the new company as well as the other company that we run together, that we're working on
3 companies now, don't you?
3 now, man. It's forever busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it has definitely caused some stress in the marriage, because we're used to one thing and then we start to change, and it's hard. It's particularly on her as well.
Yeah.
She had to sleep in bed alone 6 nights this week, pretty much,
Right.
and was very unusual because I've been traveling to 4 different cities this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's another thing that I can work on and grow with.
Right.
Is uncomfortable as it can be.
Well, that's where our growth starts. Our growth starts at the edge of our comfort zone, and I think that it takes courage to be able to step out there and to put yourself into that position where you have the capability to fail. But remember what I said yesterday about failing. Failing is an acronym for first attempt in learning. So, and courage is not the absence of fear, but it's rather acting in spite of it.
Yeah.
And that's what people think that don't get to realize with like soldiers and people that are constantly stepping out of the comfort zone. It's not that they don't feel the fear. They feel the fear and they act anyway. And the more that you do that, the more that you trigger this part of your brain that says, that is something that I need to learn, or that's something that I need to grow into. And the more that you do that, the better and stronger that you get. It's a muscle. But when you stop doing that, when you stop trying and striving to step out of that comfort zone, the same thing happens. That retracts. And you become one of these people that will let life just slip them by.
Exactly. No doubt. Like you said, it is a muscle that you have to grow. And it's easy to backtrack because it starts to get weaker. Like as you step out of your comfort zone, no matter what, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Of course it is. And it's really easy to shy away. It was the archetypal story of the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to a fair bit of Jordan Peterson
Yes.
during my work this week, and talking about how we all have our dragons to face. And in all the old stories, the dragons were either holding gold or they're holding virgins. They're
Mm-hmm.
holding the prize.
Mm-hmm.
And you could stay in the village and stay in your comfort and stay in your safety. And that dragon will always be there, still be in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Like that one task, like me creating this new company. It's been on my mind for the past year and a half. And every time I thought about it, I kind of pushed it to the side. I was like, I knew I needed to start something new to phase out of my other company.
Right.
And I refused to face the dragon. Like I refused to.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, you know what? All I got to do is start with small steps.
Yes.
So I started by asking you, hey, let's talk about doing an LLC. I didn't want to go to the same lawyer I went to last time. Mm-hmm. And that was just a small step, just asking a question. And it was a little bit closer to going towards the cave that the dragon was in.
Yes.
And it starts stacking upon each other. And now I feel phenomenal about it. I still have a lot more work to go through, and it's going to be scary, but I'm further in the journey because I stepped out of that comfort zone and faced that dragon.
The journey of 1,000 leagues starts with a single step.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. Like we ran a competition last week, and it was a push-up competition to see who could do the most amount of push-ups in 7 days. And what we did is we set a target for people that if the more men do 4,000 push-ups or more, we would donate $50 per person to an SPCA. And what that does, or what that showed, is that it wasn't the person that did the most amount of push-ups in one day, because that was 1,678, but it was the person that consistently showed up every single day that actually won that competition.
Shout out Gianni.
Yeah, Gianni. shout out Poli.
Yeah.
He's flying that flag hard for G17. So I think that by establishing consistent steps, and then also focusing on what it is that the end goal is that you really want, but then still being very present, because that's what real leaders can do, right? The real leaders are concise with their message. They are visionaries, and they involve the people that they want to have go towards that vision in the message. So they bring them into it, and then they also are concise about how they relay that. There was a study that showed that it wasn't big words that leaders are using, but rather they're utilizing a vocabulary that relates to the people that they're leading. It's not about showing how intelligent you are, but rather showing the people that you are leading that you understand where they are, and you understand where you would like to take them. So you involve them in the plan. It's you and them going towards the vision that you are communicating. Like, for example, with King Leonidas, he knew that those 300 men were not going to come back. But he was right there with them, leading from the front, ensuring that they were going to make this stand for Sparta. And it involved eventually allowing the Spartans to win that war against Persia.
Yeah, it was the vision is what sticks out to me, is knowing exactly what the goal is in order to lead to that.
Right.
Being able to articulate and write it out exactly what I want, because once you know what you want, then you can know and break down the steps of how to get it. Because if you don't have a vision, you don't have a target, you're not going to hit it. And if you're a leader without a target, you're just wandering the desert. You're not really doing much of anything.
A goal without a plan is nothing but a dream, and dreams are for when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So if you figure out what it is that you want, for me, I've changed the way that I see goals, though, because I used to believe that they needed to be SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and time reliant, right? But I shifted that to having my goal as my direction. And for example, my goal is to be 1% better every single day. And that's my direction that I'm going in. So I navigate towards that direction. It's my North Star. But then there are milestones that I incorporate into that. So 1% better in my 5K that I run, 1% better in the ability that I have to do any sort of workouts. And what happens is that after 365 days, you're actually ending up being 37 times better than when you started in the beginning. Instead of trying to do all of that in one day, and you end up just being twice as good as you were before.
Exactly. It's the great part about Excalibur too is pushing each other to go back to the push-up competition we posed, and the other competitions we've posed. We were discussing what our next venture would be to help the guys grow and learn more. And we've been doing physical challenges the past couple of times, but we're also talking about doing something more mental, and like grounding and spiritual. Let's talk a little bit about exactly what we're going to do for the next time we pose a challenge to the guys and to ourselves, of course, as leaders.
See, that's the thing. Like we involve ourselves in that challenge as well. It's not like I'm sitting around doing nothing and not. I would never ask somebody to do something that I would not do for myself. So I unfortunately only did 4,001 push-ups, or 4,010 push-ups. So Gianni, you whooped me by a couple hundred, but that won't happen again.
Yeah. You still beat your goal though.
Yes, exactly.
Your goal was 4,000. So
I set the goal. I was able to get there. But I think what it entails for now is that a lot of people always focus on the physical, which we are utilizing as a fundamental block, right?
As an anchor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that helps you to shift your mindset. But then how do you reflect on those things? How do you figure out what it is where you went wrong? Are you journaling? And one of the things that I think is most critical to me, you'll see I've got books everywhere around my office, and every single one of them have different aspects of my day and different aspects of how I time things. So one has my day timed out, what I did every single day, every time at what particular time in that day. And then the other one is how I felt. And the other one is what I was thinking. And what you are able to do with that is when you go back to a particular day, you can see what it was that went wrong or what went right, and you can replicate that. It's a system, right? You've got to start to look at your mind and look at your body as a system that you establish principles on that can step you towards the better person that you're trying to be. Most people go, oh, I want to be this, but there's no plan in place to get there. So you have to focus on leading yourself first before you can even lead anybody else.
Yeah. And even before that, you also have to do the self-reflection, like you spoke of, writing about what you're going through, how you're feeling, what you did. I still have journals from 2015, 2016, and I can open them up and read them and know exactly where I was in that date and time. It's wild to see. It's also cool to see the growth.
Yes.
And there are some journals, I mean, I've got a couple dozen. There are sometimes I can open up a book and see that, hey, I did a little backtracking here. Like, hey, I was struggling with a relationship here where previously I had overcome the same challenge, but being able to go back to it and see, hey, I went through this, I got through it. Well, how did I get through it? What was I thinking? Where was my mind at the time?
Exactly. And by doing that, it gives you the capability to not repeat those again. Because what you practice really well, or what you have established really well, is that you have self-awareness. That's another quality that a leader needs to have. He needs self-awareness of how he's interacting with people and how he's going through things. And when someone says something that disgruntles him, you can't put on a face of, oh, I can't believe that person thought that. You need to go be very neutral in that standpoint, control your emotions.
Yes.
To understand what is the message that they're actually trying to tell you, process that information, and then get buy-in from them if it's not something that you're thinking is going to be good, right? So you go, okay, for example, what was it? When I was working as the technical manager, I had somebody that wanted technical drawings done their way, but that didn't relate to the person that was on top of me. What was it called? Hilton Travis was the most amazing boss that I ever had, right? But he had drawings and things that he wanted in a very particular way. It was his way or the highway. And there was a reason behind that. Is he's gone through so many different iterations of things and so many faults that he learned that this is the correct way to do things. And when you got somebody else on, because I had done that, I handed over my best practices to them. They wanted to go off and do it a particular way that wasn't according to Hilton's way. Hilton comes back and it's like, what the fuck's going on here? Like he's very brash, which was amazing because he always knew exactly where he stood with him. But that's also a quality that he portrayed because he really was passionate about what he was doing. So we went back, had a conversation with this guy, and kind of understood where his mindset was. And my frustration was the fact that we had already established his best practices with him. So how do you reframe that and not show that you're frustrated, rather coach them through understanding what the rationale behind it is. And this is the correct way. We understand that you like to exercise your creative freedoms, but in this particular instance, this is the way that things need to be done. And he understood that.
Yeah, it's like the two different styles of leadership we also spoke on was like ones that pull and ones that push.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be a tyrant as a
Right.
leader. You can push people, be the slave driver, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You could also be one that attracts and pulls and says, hey, you're not even saying, look, you're just doing.
Right.
And you create that attraction that pulls the people towards you to follow in your footsteps, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to, hey, go down that road. You better go down that road. Whatever you do, go down that road.
Right. I think that's something that I strive to have, is by focusing on the qualities that I exhibit to people, and by focusing on how I come across and be practicing that self-awareness, and also just caring about people, that tends to put me in a position where I end up being a leader a lot of the time. I think during the one time during the Crucible, there was an instance that was a high pressure instance, right? It was one of the most high pressure instances I've ever been in my entire life. And we were not getting across what the coaches wanted us to do. And nobody was willing to step up in that moment. And being tired, being overrun, being all the rest, completely sore, chose to step up and was able to get the guys to cooperate with what I was asking them to do, because we all needed to be in sync. But what really established me being put into that position was not that moment. It was the work that I did before the moment. It was when somebody was suffering, somebody was going through something, I was trying to help them along the way. And that was nothing to do with me wanting to exhibit myself as anything else, but rather, I know how you feel, dude. I know how you feel. I'm going to be there right there, because I would expect that if I was in the situation, you did that for me. So that it's just treating people with respect, treating them with the loyalty, and understanding that we have grit inside of us. It's about establishing that you can push through anything, and being that brother next to the other brother and saying that I'm going to be there with you regardless of whatever shit comes your way.
Yeah, I think tying it back to selfless service is a great way to wrap it up, because to me, that's probably the most important, is to be able to get outside yourself and not do it for selfish means, and do it to pull your brothers up.
That's what being a leader is, right?
Yeah.
You can't lead if you don't have anybody else to lead.
Exactly. So we want the best. We want the best for ourselves, but we also want the best for everybody we're around and with.
100%. Well, dude, it's been awesome again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
As always.
Yep. You guys know where to find us. You can find us on Excalibur Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Spotify, which you're probably listening to right now.
Yep. Come check it out and share it to your friends.
Yeah. Have a great one, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.